midwife and I recently had a miscarriage and I want to talk about it. I recently had a miscarriage about a week and a half ago, and I want to share my experience on here. Number one, because it's therapeutic for me to share my experience, kind of like a diary for myself, just to talk about it. But I also think it's really important for other women. As a midwife, I spend a lot of time educating women and informing them about their bodies and the processes that are normal for our bodies to go through. And I really love it. That's my favorite part of my job, is educating and informing and empowering women with more information about their bodies. I hope that they feel more empowered with the information that I provided to them. That's my goal with every visit. I want to share my experience here because I know for myself that never having had a miscarriage before and going through it for the first time, it's very isolating. Not a lot of women talk openly and raw and honest about it. There are a lot of creators on here that do and that have shared their experience, but outside of TikTok, it's not really an open thing when you're just talking to people in real life. It's not something people want to talk about. It's anything that has to do with grief is not really talked about in general life. People are uncomfortable with it. It makes people uncomfortable to talk about loss. And a lot of people don't know how to talk about it or what to say to you, which is understandable because I was similar to that. You know, as a midwife, there's you know things, there's a certain way of talking to your patients about loss and certain things that you just don't say to people, and you learn a lot through your patients' experiences if they're open and they talk with you about it. So I've learned a lot through my patients and just through caring for people. But before I was a midwife, I knew nothing about miscarriage. I knew nothing about loss. I didn't know how to respond or how to talk to people who were in that situation. It's very uncomfortable. Even before I had my own miscarriage, you don't know until you've been through it yourself. You don't truly know until you have experienced it yourself. And so I want to share my experience. Number one, it's therapy for myself. Number two, to help other women who might be going through the same thing as me. And for anybody else who wants to listen. So for people that maybe know somebody who's experienced a loss before, or just you're a curious person and you want to learn more about what miscarriage is like. And my experience is my own experience. Miscarriage is different for everybody. I had my miscarriage about a week and a half ago. I was somewhere in my 6th week of pregnancy. I was almost 7 weeks pregnant whenever the loss was diagnosed. On my ultrasound, the pregnancy seemed to stop growing somewhere in the 5th week. I document my HCG through urine test strips. I have that documented, and I'll put that up here as I talk about it, but I have it documented all the way from 9 days past ovulation when I found out I was pregnant, all the way through until I actually passed my pregnancy. And then you can see the one labeled with the X there, that that's when my hormones drastically dropped, was after the tissue left my body. And I like to document that just because I was curious. You know, as a midwife, science is my thing. And so I want data, I want more information. And so that was helpful for me to be able to see what was going on inside of my body without having to do a bunch of invasive tests, without having to do ultrasounds, without having to do blood draws all the time. It's an easy way to do that at home. I continued to do that once I found out that I had a non-viable pregnancy. And then once my body passed the tissue, I wanted to make sure that those numbers went back down. And then I do have one there that has an 11 written on the strip. That is the date that I got a beta HCG, a blood draw, and confirmed that my HCG was at an 11 at that time frame. And I did that just because I can, because where I work, I can just get my blood drawn whenever I want to. And so I did. just out of curiosity's sake, I wanted to make sure my HCG was falling in my blood levels appropriately, more so for knowing, having more information on when my body might start to ovulate again. So on that date, my HCG was an 11. And then I thought it was super cool just to be able to see what that beta HCG and how it corresponded to the darkness of the line on these WANFO early pregnancy test strips, because those are the ones that I prefer to use for early pregnancy detection, because they're very highly sensitive. They're on the manufacturer instructions, it states that it detects levels as low as 10. And as you can see, that level was an 11, and there's a line, like it's faint, but there's a line, and it's easy to see in real life. It might be a little harder on the camera, but it's easy to see. So interesting for me to see that it can actually detect levels lower than that, it seems. And so when I got my first very faint line at 9 DPO, that my levels were probably lower than 11. They, I'm imagining they were probably like 6 or something like that whenever it actually picked it up. So that was very interesting for me to see. I think others might be interested to see that too, because a lot of people, especially whenever you are trying to conceive or if you've had a loss before, tracking line progression on your urine test it's a thing that people like to do. It can kind of be reassuring, or it can kind of clue you in earlier that there may be something going on with this pregnancy.